Right now on Morning News Now, fire and ice, a dangerous split screen of severe weather impacting nearly every corner of the country. From those sizzling temps that have millions from Texas to Washington state waking up to some serious heat alerts, to the swath of powerful storms slugging folks in the south, even bringing baseball-sized hail to the Lone Star State. Our Angie Lassman is tracking it all. Pressure and pushback. While the Secretary of State touts President Trump's Iran peace deal to Gulf allies in the Middle East, a rift is forming on Capitol Hill. The rare rebuke of the commander-in-chief by some Republican senators and reaction from the White House. Also this morning, the mayor's touch, another decision day in America yielding big wins for progressives, especially Democratic socialists backed by New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani. Our key takeaways in the run-up to November. Plus, you might want to stand up for this one, more on the sitting epidemic. New research shows how it's plaguing many Americans in their daily lives, but don't worry, we've got the lowdown on the best ways you can get up and moving to keep that blood flowing. Good morning, good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. We start this hour with the extreme weather that is sweeping across much of the country. Heat alerts stretch from southwest Texas all the way up to Washington state, impacting some 19 million people. The temperatures in some parts of the country could hit 15 degrees higher than normal today. The South is also sweating through some powerful storms. In Alabama, a major cleanup is underway after an overnight storm left a mess in Montgomery. Workers had to use heavy-duty equipment to pick up mangled metal and move debris from roadways so utility crews could restore power. In North Texas, hail the size of baseballs slammed into cars that were driving along the I-40 corridor near Amarillo. And farther out west, crews from Utah to Nevada are urgently battling a number of raging wildfires. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson is tracking these weather woes as the latest from Houston. Priscilla, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. It is summer and it is hot. You have 19 million people across the country who are under heat advisories and heat warnings. Along the Gulf Coast, we are dealing with the soaring temperatures and the stifling humidity that is making it feel like triple-digit heat in some areas. Meanwhile, out west, you've got those folks dealing with not only dry conditions, but also the heat, and that is fueling some of these massive wildfires that we're seeing out in Utah. You have tens of thousands of acres that are charred as firefighters there are working to contain the blaze. And you have other parts of the country who are dealing with the severe weather and severe thunderstorms. So out in Oklahoma, we saw streets beginning to flood and become fast-moving streams, so much so that firefighters actually had to go out and help to trap some of those motorists. We also saw in northwest Texas and Colorado hail just pummeling communities there, and in Tennessee and Alabama, cleanup underway from severe storms, with folks there trying to get a lot of that debris and those big trees moved off of the roadway so that they can get things back moving. So it is just soaring temperatures, severe storms, making for a summer of extreme weather that is just heating up.
All right, Priscilla, thank you. For more on these severe storms and these heat warnings, let's get your morning news now. Weather. Angie Lassman joins us with the forecast. Angie, good morning.
Hi there, Joe. Good morning to you. We've, of course, got to start with that heat that Priscilla was just mentioning. 19 million people under at least moderate to major heat risks today. You can see some of those major cities include El Paso, Tucson, Phoenix, Yuma, and Los Angeles. And that's, of course, because of where our temperatures are going to end up by later this afternoon. You will have the dry heat across parts of the Southwest, places like Phoenix, Albuquerque, El Paso, but you're still going to hit 111 in Phoenix today. We've got 103 on tap for Las Vegas. A little farther to the south, that's where we'll have all that humidity across parts of Texas. 96 degrees in Dallas and feeling like 101, 94 in Houston and feeling like 103. So it's going to be quite uncomfortable. Similar story, actually. You've probably seen this all over social media and your headlines this morning. We've got a really intense heat wave happening across parts of Europe. This omega blocking pattern is setting up. That's, of course, helping to keep all of the heat in place. That really strong high pressure, it really acts as a lid over the surface so so there's nowhere for any cool air to kind of work into that region, and that is leaving us with these highs more than 30 degrees above average in some of these places. We've got Paris set to hit 102 and 103 over the next couple of days, 109 in Bordeaux, Frankfurt 100 degrees on Thursday, and we really don't see a whole lot of relief for a large area as we get into the next short term. At least we will have a little bit of some relief farther to the west. So the UK and France will see a bit of temperature swings into the 70s by Sunday, 80s in Paris by Sunday. So we'll have a little bit of a reprieve for folks there, but we've got to get through a lot of heat in the meantime. Here's the deal, though. In the center of the U.S., we've still got these flood alerts that are up. Notice the flash flood warnings and a whole lot of thunderstorms that are kind of working through this region. We are concerned about the flooding. We're also concerned about some stronger storms developing as the afternoon and evening get underway, specifically across areas that you see in that yellow shade and that orange shade. The enhanced risk is over parts of Wyoming, Colorado. You can see the slight risk for Salt Lake City as well. And it's the hail, pretty large in size, up to 4 inches, as well as those wind gusts up to 75 miles per hour. And even a couple of tornadoes will be possible. That goes through the evening hours again. So keep an eye on that here as you get through the rest of your day. Otherwise, as we get into tomorrow, we'll see some of these morning kind of thunderstorms give way to afternoon stronger storms. So again, another slight risk, no surprise. We've got all the ingredients there. It's the hail, the damaging winds, and a couple of tornadoes stretching from Springfield through Dodge City and up through Casper. So we'll be watching for, again, some kind of stormy conditions across the Rockies, even as we get into tomorrow, Joe.
A lot to watch, and unreal that we're doing the Europe forecast right now. That's just how hot it is there.
Indeed.
Right, Angie, thank you. In the Middle East, Secretary of State Marco Rubio is kicking off his first tour of the Gulf region since last week's memorandum of understanding was signed between the U.S. and Iran. That framework agreement gives 60 days for negotiators to hash out a final peace deal. It remains in place despite conflicting messaging from the U.S. and Iran over nuclear inspections and the unfreezing of assets. After touching down in the United Arab Emirates, Rubio said he'd be discussing the agreement with Gulf leaders and said Iran would not be allowed to charge tolls in that vital Strait of Hormuz.
It's an international waterway. No country is allowed to charge tolls or fees on an international waterway. That's existing international law. That's the way it is in international waterways all over the world, and that's the way we expect it'll be here.
NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley joins us now with the latest from Tel Aviv. Matt, good morning. This mission is aimed at pitching this agreement to some skeptical Gulf allies. So how tough a sell does Rubio have here? What are some of those countries' concerns?
Now, well, remember, Joe, I mean, like Israel, where I'm standing right now, America's Gulf allies were active in the fighting in the sense that Iran attacked them, just like Iran attacked here in Israel. But they weren't active in really any way or represented, except for the country of Qatar, in those negotiations that arrived at that memorandum of understanding that was signed last week, and that also have led to these negotiations that are ongoing in a very abortive sense right now as we speak. So this is going to be a tough sell for Marco Rubio because, again, just like Israel, these countries are stakeholders in the war but have had no say in its resolution. One of the things that they're very likely to mention is that the Memorandum of Understanding makes no mention of Iran's ballistic nuclear missile capacity. Remember, it was those ballistic missiles that really pelted places like here and Israel and all throughout the Gulf, Kuwait, Bahrain, as recently as just a couple of weeks ago. They're also going to be concerned about the 60-day negotiations leading up to some sort of deal around Iran's potential nuclear weapons program. A nuclear weapons program that, by the way, Iran has consistently denied having for generations, even though they do now have highly enriched uranium. The other thing that these Gulf countries are going to be sharing in their concerns with Israel is Iran's funding for proxy groups throughout the region. Israel has long resented and fought against Iranian-backed groups like Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in the Gaza Strip, the Houthis in Yemen, other groups throughout Syria, Iraq. All of these groups are also at odds with the Sunni-led monarchies in the Gulf region. So again, all three of those concerns, all of them are going to be very, very major issues for the Gulf countries, and all of them have so far gone unanswered in that Memorandum of Understanding.
Matt, let's talk about some of the conflicting statements we're getting from Iran and the U.S. about some of the points in the agreement, specifically those nuclear inspections. Is it clear if inspectors will visit Iran's nuclear sites as part of this? What's the UN's nuclear watchdog saying?
Well, we just heard from the United States, from several officials, including, we heard from J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, that the IAEA inspectors are going to be heading in to Iran. The Iranians have said that there was no such agreement on that it was barely even discussed. We heard from the head of the IAEA, who assured the public that there are going to be nuclear inspections from that UN watchdog group. Important to note here, Joe, the Iranians and the IAEA never really stopped all of the inspections by the IAEA. It was only after the Israeli and American attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities last June that the Iranians said that the IAEA would no longer have regular access or any access to nuclear enrichment facilities. Other nuclear facilities that aren't enriching, but that are, for example, like the Bushehr plant operating a power plant, those are technically, in theory, still able to be accessed by the IAEA.
Matt, while we have you closer to home where you are, a new report by a UN Commission of Inquiry says that Israel continues to commit genocide in Gaza, war crimes in the occupied West Bank by deliberately targeting Palestinian children. Israel has strongly denied the report, calling it a, quote, libelous sham. What more can you tell us about the report's findings and how Israel's responding?
Yeah, I mean, Israel is responding the way it always does to these kinds of reports, saying that they are false and that the United Nations has some kind of inherent bias against the state of Israel. This has been Israel's line, not just since October 7th, but really for quite a long time, saying the United Nations is populated by left-wingers who are opposed to Israel and who are infected with global anti-Semitism. This is going to be a very bracing announcement, even more so than the others, because, of course, the fighting in the Gaza Strip, as far as Israel is concerned, has stopped for the moment. The Israelis fault Hamas for refusing to disarm, for the continuing impasse. The Israelis have said, though, and we heard this from Benjamin Netanyahu, that they are planning on expanding their footprint in Gaza to beyond the 60% of the Strip that they already control. So clearly, while there might not be full-on fighting, there is still quite a lot of violence and disagreement in Gaza. Joe?
All right. Matt Bradley in Tel Aviv. Matt, thank you so much. In Washington, Republicans are issuing a rare rebuke of President Trump over the war with Iran. 4 Senate Republicans sided with Democrats yesterday, passing a war powers resolution that calls on the president to end that conflict. It is a largely symbolic measure, one that passed in the House earlier this month. The resolution urges Mr. Trump to withdraw U.S. troops from the region or seek congressional approval for any further military action against Iran. NBC News legal affairs reporter Gary Grumbach joins us with more on this and some other headlines out of Washington. Gary, good morning. We've seen a vote fail on this resolution several times in the Senate since the war with Iran began in February. So what finally moved the needle for at least some of these Republicans, and how is the White House responding to this?
Yeah, this is effectively just a slap on the wrist, Joe. They're upset that this war is happening, and they're upset that they don't have authorization to do anything about this war. They weren't given the opportunity to do that. So they've done this many times before. It hasn't worked out in terms of passing this resolution. It did this time in part because of 4 Republicans who voted for the resolution, including Senator Rand Paul and Senator Bill Cassidy. But it also had to do with a couple absences on the Republican side, including Mitch McConnell and Dave McCormick, who did not vote against this resolution. So it did end up passing. Now, this is very symbolic, as you mentioned. It does not actually have any teeth. It does not go to the White House for a signature. The president wouldn't sign it, even if he could sign it. And the White House is really downplaying this, saying Democrats finally got this passed as soon as the war finally ended. And this happened because of those absences of Republicans. The president is, however, posting on Truth Social, these senators have just made my job more difficult. Joe.
All right, Gary, President Trump is expected to actually visit Capitol Hill today to address some other frustrations with Republican lawmakers. That includes his demands for lawmakers to pass this election security bill that does not have enough votes to pass the House. What more should we know about this?
Yeah, this is about the Save America Act. This is a controversial piece of legislation that requires photo ID and proof of citizenship in order to be able to vote in future elections. Senate Republicans hope to get him down during lunch today and say, hey, this is not going to pass the way it's written right now. This is not going to pass in the Senate at all at the moment. And we've seen over the past couple months, they've tried to tie this to other important pieces of legislation, things like keeping the government open or immigration legislation. And that hasn't worked either. And we've seen President try to go the executive order route on some of these issues, right? right, trying to get this all done by signing executive orders on these issues. Judges across the country are knocking those down as well. So they've certainly got some work to do on the Save America Act content, Joe.
And Gary, some Republicans also frustrated with President Trump's choice to oversee the Department of National Intelligence, the DNI, at least for now. Bill Pulte was sworn in as the acting director of the department on Friday. That's despite having no experience in intelligence. That's why some Republicans are so upset. What have his first few days in the post looked like?
Yeah, he's had a busy couple days. He has pretty much removed the counterterrorism office of the Director of National Intelligence Office. 400 people have been removed from that office, according to NBC News reporting. And Congress is not happy about that either. You might imagine Senator Tom Tillis is pretty upset. Here's what he had to say.
If Pulte does a reduction in force the way that I've been engaged to do it before, where you do the analysis, you make sure you retain the most capable people, and you only eliminate the people whose jobs can be either automated or never should have been there, good. My guess is, based on his past experience, it's just going to be another hot, steamy pile of dough.
So Bill Pulte is acting director at the moment. He would have to be confirmed by the Senate to be fully a confirmed director of national intelligence. That doesn't seem likely based on Tillis's comments there and some of the other comments from senators that we've heard yesterday. Joe.
Yeah, we've got the bleeping machine out early this morning. Gary Grumbach in Washington, thank you so much. It is Wednesday morning, which means we've got some election results for some key primary races and runoffs. Voters in 4 states went to the polls yesterday, setting the stage for this year's midterms. Here in New York, it was a big night for the liberal wing of the Democratic Party. Mayor Zohran Mamdani put his influence to the test, backing 3 congressional candidates, and he was 3 for 3 last night. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Julie Sirkin is here to help break down the results for us. Julie, good to have you with us. We'll start there in New York. Big night for progressives, especially the Democratic Socialist Party. Walk us through Mamdani's candidates' wins here.
Joe, it's not just the bleep machine going this morning. I think it's the siren machine warning Democratic leaders and the establishment of what we just saw last night in New York. Mamdani sweeping all 3 races that he had a hand in endorsing in. I think this was a big surprise, especially New York 13, where the Congressional Hispanic Caucus chair has been serving for more than a decade, really ingrained in that community, and Dominican Republic community, a lot of voters there. And yet they picked his opponent, Daria Liza Avila Chevalier. She is somebody who not only doesn't have a lot of experience, but was an early organizer for Mamdani, endorsed him early on. Similar story in New York 7 with Claire Valdez, winning against the establishment pick, Antonio Reynoso. And then a similar story in New York 10, where I was last night, Brad Lander taking the stage with Zohran Mamdani, managing to defeat 2 incumbents. It really is a story of the insurgent wing versus the classic Democratic establishment, and certainly leaders have to be paying attention.
I live in the first district you mentioned, and I can tell you the ads were nonstop.
Yeah,
nonstop in that one there. All right, let's talk about South Carolina, because this was a little unusual. We had a double endorsement in the race for South Carolina governor on the Republican side of things. So from President Trump, I should say, double endorsement. Who came out on top?
Yeah, it was endorsement wars, right, between Mamdani in New York and President Trump in South Carolina. This was an interesting one. A couple of weeks ago, President Trump threw his endorsement behind Pamela Vett. She was the lieutenant governor in this state. That was back when it was a 5-person race, and Congresswoman Nancy Mace was in it, so President Trump wanted to send her a message. Well, fast forward to Friday of this past weekend, Trump posted on Truth Social saying, actually, I think I'll endorse not only Pam Vett, but also Alan Wilson, who happens to be the son of a Republican congressman. President Trump needs all the votes he can get on Capitol Hill. And guess what? That Republican congressman's son ended up winning last night. Alan Wilson was the attorney general in the state. Even though Yvette was leading him last time, he eked it out last night. And I think that's also a sign of how powerful not only Mamdani's endorsement is on the left, but the president's endorsement is on the right.
And it's always interesting because you get the sort of wings of the party bringing the candidates, but in the middle, when you come to the general election, oftentimes you have middle ground voters who are kind of like, I don't know who I want in these races.
Yeah.
So we'll see how all that plays out. 2 states down, we have 2 more to go, 2 very different states. Maryland, a blue state, Utah, a very red state. What did we see in those states, and what does that tell us about what's coming up later?
There was some good news for the establishment in these states. Let's start with Democrats, for example. And I want to actually go back to New York really quick, because Democratic establishment, the leaders ended up winning in New York 12 as well with Michael Lasher. He had the backing of Kathy Hochul, Jerry Nadler, who was exiting the seat, Hakeem Jeffries. A similar story in Maryland, where, for example, Steny Hoyer's pick to succeed him in the 6th district, in the 5th district, excuse me, he ended up choosing Adrian Boafo, and that is who ended up winning last night. And it wasn't an easy order because there were 23 candidates in that field.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, a big race. So that is a huge win for Democratic leaders. You had a race, for example, April McLean Delaney, who beat David Trone last time when he decided to run for Senate. Trone wanted a seat back. Didn't work out for him. You could see it on your screen there. The incumbent ended up winning. Let's move over to Utah real quick because this is a big one. Democrats' first shot at a congressional seat in 5 years because of a redistricting battle, not the one President Trump pushed, but one that has been tied up in the courts to try and root out gerrymandering. Democrats have a really good shot there, almost guaranteeing that they will send a Democrat in November. Ben McAdams is the one who won yesterday, and that is also somebody who used to serve in that seat. He last held it 5 years ago when Democrats held that seat. The candidate backed by Bernie Sanders, the more progressives, ended up losing. So you have a tale of two different stories depending on where you are in the country.
All right, Julie Sirkin, good to have you with us, walking through all of the results. Appreciate it. The nation's airlines are issuing a warning, sparking some concerns about air safety. They say close calls in the sky may be happening more often than many travelers realize, and that not all of them are being reported. This warning comes after a very close call in Boston. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello has more.
The most recent close call happened this weekend. Confusion as a Delta flight aborted its landing in Boston after a cockpit collision alert warned that an American jet was just 300 feet away on an intersecting runway.
Delta 2361 going around because of American. American 3161, where are you going? You cleared it for takeoff, 3161.
A stunning revelation from the organization that represents the nation's airlines.
There are many more, thousands of more of near misses than are probably out there in the public and that, get the headlines. There are hundreds of them every single day.
But only a fraction make the news. The FAA says most reported incidents are not close calls and that runway incursion rates have decreased more than 10% since last year. In April, the FAA says two Southwest planes came within 500 feet of each other over Nashville.
Schedule your landing clearance, schedule your approach clearance.
And a close call between two regional jets at New York's JFK Airport.
You're flying through the approach course runway 31 West, correct immediately.
Wilco, Brickyard 4464.
And following horrific crashes in Washington, Louisville, and New York.
This has been a year when we've had many serious close calls.
The Pilots Union and NTSB want Congress to require all planes to have precise GPS-based air traffic receivers that show surrounding air traffic, something the American Airlines crew did not have in the fatal midair crash over Washington.
If we don't have a deadline, it will never happen.
While the Senate wants to set a deadline, the House has declined, concerned that it would create an excessive burden on airlines and aircraft owners. Back to you.
All right, Tom, thank you. Much more to come on this hour of Morning News Now, including some alarming new research on cancer. Yes, deaths are widely down here in America, but there are still major disparities in who actually has access to resources and treatment. We're going to explain in your weekly medical checkup. First, though, after the break, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, an unrelenting heat wave is scorching parts of Europe, sending both tourists and locals scrambling to stay cool. We're going to take you overseas next. We're back now with the latest on that deadly heat wave that is gripping Europe. The continent is sweltering with record-shattering temperatures, reaching triple-digit temperatures again today in the UK, Germany, Spain, and France. You can see people are doing just about anything they can to try and find relief. NBC News international correspondent Danielle Hamamdjian is in Paris. Joins us now with the latest. Danielle, typically Paris would be a welcoming assignment. Maybe not right now, though. Good morning.
Good morning. You know, people are walking around. I'm not seeing many smiles. A lot of people hot and bothered, Joe. It is hot here today, hotter than 99% of the rest of the planet. And most people you see behind me, some residents, but mostly tourists who are determined to power through this heat wave. This morning, scorching temperatures are gripping much of Europe. From Paris to Madrid to London, locals and tourists are scrambling to stay cool, lining up for fans and turning to famous fountains to beat the heat. France suffering through its hottest day since records began in 1947, with one town on Tuesday hitting 112 degrees. The extreme heat here also turning deadly, with authorities saying at least 45 people have drowned just this past week. The heat wave forcing iconic Paris tourist attractions like the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre to close early. How would you describe the heat in Paris today?
Unbearably hot. It's just ridiculous.
In the UK, a rare red weather warning now coming into force, with hundreds of schools shutting and National Rail urging passengers to only travel if absolutely necessary. The extreme heat drawing global attention at a climate conference in London.
London isn't just calling, it's cooking.
Experts say human-driven climate change is making heat waves more frequent and more intense. And to make things worse, much of Europe isn't built for this kind of heat. Air conditioning is rare. Only about 20% of households have it.
I feel like all the buildings being made of stone, brick, it holds it in, radiates. It's not like New York where you've got newer buildings that are made to not hold this heat.
With temperatures still climbing, forecasters warning the worst is still ahead with little relief in sight. And Joe, on the way here this morning, I asked the cab driver how he was coping with the heat, and he sort of just shook his head and said he started work early today. Might as well drive around, he said, since the car was the only place he could find some AC. Meanwhile, thousands of Parisians have been cooling off in the canals, and no doubt there'll be many more there tonight. Joe, back to you.
Yeah, that cab driver might be sleeping in the car tonight. Danielle, thank you so much. Now to more international news this morning. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un unveiling plans to build new warships in an ambitious naval expansion project. NBC News international correspondent Claudio Lavanga joins us now from Rome to take us around the world in 60 seconds. Claudio, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. That's right. According to KCNA, the North Korean state-run news agency, Kim Jong-un on Tuesday unveiled and inaugurated the country's largest ever warship, a 5,000-ton destroyer. Now, in a speech at the shipyard, Kim Jong-un said the warship represents a new chapter in North Korea's military history, saying that its navy has put an end to over 70 years of stagnation and will now grow to be admirable beyond imagination. Let's go now to Sydney in Australia, where a woman in critical condition after she was bitten by a shark more than a week ago was woken briefly by doctors from an induced coma for enough time to tell her mom and partner she loves them and to ask if her daughter was okay. On June 13th, 34-year-old Leah Stewart was attacked by a shark and suffered multiple bites on her arms and legs and extreme blood loss. She remains in intensive care. And let's stay in Australia, where a 58-year-old man in Canberra has been recognized by the Guinness World Records as the loudest person in the world. His name is Joseph McCrail Beta, a professional air conditioner cleaner and, no wonder, a town crier. Take a listen.
Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Welcome to Canberra!
Now, Joe, that was loud, but it was even louder when he shouted the word now at 122.4 decibels. Just to give you an idea of how loud that is in the noise range of a chainsaw, an aircraft, a jet aircraft taking off, and an ambulance at close range. Maybe, Joe, we can ask him to shout news now so loud that he will wake up audiences in the morning.
Yeah, there you go. He could anchor an entire newscast and just wake everyone up. I love that. Claudio, thank you so much. Good to have you with us. Coming up, could a simple summer stroll hold the key to lasting brain health? After the break, we're going to shine a light on some new research that's linking good old-fashioned sunlight to a lower risk of dementia. Your weekly medical checkup is next. The doctor will see you now. We're back now with a growing wildfire that's forcing thousands of evacuations in central Utah. The so-called Iron Fire has burned more than 31,000 acres. Authorities are investigating what started the fire, but said they believe it was sparked by a person. It's the latest in a string of wildfires just 1 month into this fire season. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson has a closer look at new technology that aims to detect fires sooner.
As the return of the warm weather signals the start of fire season, in Montana, these air tanker pilots perform their signature feat of aerial precision, taking to the skies to stop wildfires in their tracks. In the coming months, they'll fly dozens of missions, dropping thousands of gallons of fire retardant on wildfires across the country. So far this year, wildfires have burned almost 2.5 million acres, nearly 2 times the average of the last 10 years. But as fires grow more complex, so does the response, from satellites in space to mobile firefighting bases on the ground.
We used to have fire seasons, right? Now we have what we call fire years.
And many of the largest and most destructive wildfire years on record in the U.S. have occurred in the last 2 decades. Last year, the deadly Los Angeles wildfires causing an estimated $61 billion in damages, making 2025 the costliest year on record. The key to stopping them, early detection and rapid response.
There's a period of time that can be several days where the fire is invisible to all the stakeholders except satellites. And once the fire takes off and is visible, it's usually too late.
Munich-based Aurora Tech is taking fire spotting into the space age, building satellites to detect small fires before they grow out of control. Then the platform uses weather patterns, vegetation maps, and other data to predict where it could spread.
This allows responders in the ground to make operational decisions so they can decide to avoid the fire, change the containment strategy, position the mitigations in different ways.
Once a fire is detected, responders have to coordinate aircraft, crews, and equipment across multiple agencies.
It's all about that initial attack component and being able to put assets onto a fire as soon as possible.
That's where Track Plus comes in, as a sort of all-in-one air traffic control for firefighters.
What we do is able to present information to the dispatchers in order to show where the fire location is, which aircraft are available to respond, and what the capabilities of those aircraft are.
With a plan in place, crews on the ground and in the air now need large amounts of fire retardant. Perimeter Solutions, a leading supplier of fire suppression agents in the U.S., says those new tools are key.
That allows us to pre-position our equipment to make sure we're ready before the fire gets there.
Perimeter has also developed a fleet of trucks that can quickly transform into a firefighting base.
And what that allows the operators to do is bring in helicopters or even fixed-wing aircraft to be able to load closer to the fire, improve their turnarounds, and improve the speed of being able to operate and attack the fire.
And all that work, the technology, the preps for this moment.
We suited up for a practice flight with Neptune Aviation, a private aerial firefighting company, to see how it all comes together. When the call comes in, these pilots have to be airborne in 15 minutes.
It's wild.
With a tanker loaded with 3,000 gallons of retardant.
So this is what an airdrop is like. We're going down to about 150 feet. All of a sudden, they turn the brakes down. They slow down the speed. They get right over top of their target, and then they let go.
You ever get dicey when you do that? Yeah, turbulence, and, you know, you have to be a pretty decent mountain flying pilot. If it does feel dicey, you're probably doing something wrong. I like to say it's as dangerous as you make it.
As dangerous as you make it.
To fight a major wildfire, these pilots might repeat this process up to 15 times in a single day. Neptune's pilots were among those that battled the wildfires in Los Angeles.
Must have been pretty tough.
Yes, we were at all of those fires, but just the pure devastation of it all. It's hard to watch, but to know that we're a part of helping is a good feeling.
Neptune President Jennifer Drawn says the fires underscored the need for better tools.
If we can predict the behavior with all this new technology, we can then have more information, more tools in our toolbox to do what we need to do, right?
Cutting-edge tech paired with skilled pilots driven by purpose.
They are heroes in the sky. They're so humble. They don't think of themselves that way, but I do.
Steve Patterson, NBC News.
Time now for our weekly medical checkup. This morning, we're looking at an alarming new report that says cancer resources aren't reaching some of the people who need them most. Plus, we're standing up for our health. Literally, we've got more on some of the health risks that come with sitting down for too long. Here to break down these health headlines is NBC News medical reporter Dr. Akshay Syal. Dr. Syal, good to have you with us. So let's start. We've got this brand new annual report from the American Association for Cancer Research. Finds despite that major decline in cancer deaths in the U.S., that's the good news, there are just some clear disparities for certain groups. Walk us through what we're learning.
Correct. So this is a report, Joe, from the AACR, American Society for Cancer Research. And essentially, this is something that they started doing in 2020. back when the pandemic first hit, because cancer deaths have dropped dramatically over recent years. We made tremendous progress thanks to new treatments, better screenings, even vaccines that have lowered cancer deaths. It doesn't tell the whole story, and you can see some of these disparities on your screen here. Black and American Indians have the highest overall cancer death rates. Just some examples, Black Americans are 2 times more likely to die from multiple myeloma. Black women, 35% more likely to die from breast cancer than white women. Rural Americans more likely to get colorectal cancer, and cervical cancer death rates 49% higher among women living in persistent poverty. Those last two, Joe, super important because we have screening, right? For colorectal cancer, we do colonoscopies. For cervical cancer, we can give a vaccine, and we can also screen for it. The HPV vaccine is largely preventable, and so that's why those last two are really, really striking to me, because they are something that we can do something about. And so the sort of takeaway here is, while cancer death rates have dropped about 35% since the 1990s, it doesn't quite tell the whole story. Certain pockets or certain populations still have a much higher death rate. So doctor's orders. We love doctor's orders on the show. It is 7:30 in the morning. Some orders from us. Get screened. Make sure that you are getting screened for things like colon cancer, cervical cancer, prostate cancer. There are such great screening tools available. And if you have a family history of cancer, please bring it up with your doctor, because you could be screened much earlier than the rest of the population.
And important to have these discussions, realize not everyone has had the same access to some of the tests and things that we have in other parts of the area. All right, up next, a new study talks about the importance of sunlight and brain health. We've got this new research finding sunlight linked to a lower risk of dementia, which means you got to get out for those walks. Walk us through this one.
Correct. So 16% lower risk of dementia among those who got significant amounts of daylight. So what does that mean? They took participants out of the UK, and they sort of had them wear these wearables that can track daylight exposure. And what they found that, people who get about, they said 0.7 hours per day, about 45 minutes a day of sunlight exposure, had a lower risk of dementia. And, what the researchers said was, this association was stronger than other things we talk about for lowering risk of dementia, such as obesity, for example, and other sort of metabolic syndrome markers. This association, for whatever reason, was stronger. We think it may be because daylight exposure can lower risk of neuroinflammation or inflammation in the brain. So doctor's orders here: start the day with the sun. Make sure you are getting outside bright and early. I'm curious, by the time you get to work, is the sun even out?
No. Every now and then, if I this time of year, but otherwise, no, it's usually not. But for most people, it's a good opportunity to do that. That's some good advice. All right, finally, the British Journal of Sports Medicine, the latest to tell us something we just know, we keep hearing. Americans are sitting way too much during the day. So what can we do to change this?
As much as 6.5 to 9.5 hours a day we are sitting. We know that sitting is linked to a higher risk of cardiometabolic syndrome, things like high blood pressure, obesity, insulin resistance, diabetes, whole host of things. Americans are just sitting too much. They are scrolling too much while they are sitting. So this study, Joe, found that hourly movement, taking breaks for 5 minutes a day, could help mitigate that risk. And those people who did those breaks, that they tracked them over time, and they found that it improved mood and it lessened their fatigue and sort of boosted their overall morale overall. So another reason to sort of get up. And our doctor's orders here, why don't we practice?
I'm going to do the orders today. Here we go.
Why don't we do the new standing up? How many people do
stand
that?
up. I like that.
So I'm going to check on you every time you do this show.
Okay.
Come on, I'm going to ring a little alarm bell. Make sure you are standing up. I'm curious. Do you do this when you're working in an office regularly?
We have standing desks here. We just actually moved into some new offices, so I'm standing much more because it's so much easier with the desk rising. I think those are a game changer.
Yeah. Take a break, walk around. What I always say is take a meeting on a phone and walk around. It really can make a big difference.
All right, some good advice here. We're not going to do this for the rest of the show, but it's nice to have a little break 42 minutes into the show here. Dr. Sayal, good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Coming up, we've got a consumer alert for all you savvy shoppers out there scouting for some summer deals. Why some security experts are starting to sound the alarm over fake websites designed to dupe folks who are looking to save this season. We're watching your wallet next. Welcome back. The Supreme Court just ruled against a Rastafarian man who alleges that Louisiana prison officials violated his religious rights. Now, Rastafarianism is an Afrocentric social and religious movement that originated in Jamaica in the 1930s. Back in 2020, for this specific case, officers handcuffed Damon Landor to a chair, shaved his dreadlocks against his will while he was serving time for a drug-related charge. Landor says he should have been protected under a federal law that requires state and local prisons to respect an inmate's right to practice religion. NBC News legal analyst Danny Ceballos is here to actually break down this ruling for us. So this was 6-3. This was the conservative majority here. They basically said the law only applies to prisons that accept federal funding. It does not allow for claims against individual officers. Break this one down for us.
Congress enacted this law pursuant to what's called its spending power. There are some things that Congress can control. For example, making money, dollar bills. That's something that's exclusively a federal power. Armies, for example, you can't have a Navy. North Carolina can't decide it's going to have a Navy because that's exclusively Congress's power. But in the areas Congress can't control, it's very clever. It uses something else called the spending power. And that's essentially a contract. A good example was back in the 80s. Congress said, you know what? We want the national drinking age to be 21. But we don't have the power to do that. But we have another clever way of doing it. We'll say, hey, all you states, we want your drinking age to be 21. And as a condition of federal highway funding, which is very valuable to the states, you must make your drinking age 21, and then we'll give you the money. If you don't, no money. It's a contract, right? So where Congress can't directly legislate, it can use this spending power. However, this particular law, it only applies to prisons who accept federal funding. It doesn't apply to the individuals who work at the prisons, much as the nurses at a hospital don't consent to be sued by something that the hospital could be sued under a federal law, for example. So that is how this case arrived at the Supreme Court.
We know the 6-3 majority is often ruled in favor of those making sort of religious rights claims. What was different here? Why is it different?
Because this case never reached religion. It had nothing to do with Rastafarian beliefs. It really had nothing to do with hair and whether hair is an expression of religion in prison or out of prison. It never reached that because the narrow issue before the court was not even whether the prison violated the spirit of the law. In fact, Justice Gorsuch suggested in the opinion that this might have violated the spirit or the policy behind this federal law. And in fact, at least in spirit, the prisoner might have been right. That never was reached by the court. The bottom line here was whether or not these individual prison officials, here's the interesting thing. The issue before the court was not whether or not there was a claim against the prison. For some reason unknown, the plaintiff did not pursue his claim against the prison, only against the individuals. The individuals never consented to this contract because they're employees. So there never could be a lawsuit under this federal statute against those prison officials.
Well, we have you. We know we are still waiting on some other major rulings from the Supreme Court this term. What is it we're keeping an eye out for?
Well, I think the most interesting has to be birthright citizenship. But the reality is it's probably not going to go the way that the conservatives want, which is to get rid of birthright citizenship. And I say that loosely because it's not fully getting rid of it and not fully giving it to absolutely everybody who's born in the States. It's a much narrower issue than that. But probably the more compelling, the more important, but maybe the less sexy one is whether or not the president can terminate heads of agencies like the FTC, for example, for cause or if he needs cause. It's not something that people maybe recognize as much as birthright citizenship, but it's certainly more important to the operation of the country.
And issue here is, of course, Lisa Cook, who's on the Federal Reserve, something we talk about all the time, and whether the president has the right to fire her. Still waiting on that decision. All right, Danny Ceballos, good to have you with us. Thank you so much. Now to a consumer alert for anyone shopping those big summer sales this week. Security experts warn a growing number of scammers are now using fake websites to try and steal your hard-earned cash. Bianca Beltran from NBC Boston explains how to spot a phony web page and protect your wallet.
The companies are household names. You think you'd recognize their websites when you see them. And there's only one Amazon, right?
That is what these scammers are banking on, that you will not check twice, that you'll just say, oh, wait, I got this great deal for a mug or a TV or whatever it is.
A report from Checkpoint Software found cybercriminals are creating fraudulent websites that look like Amazon months in advance. From December to May, nearly 7,000 Amazon-themed domains were registered.
These domains have some sort of Amazon twist to them. It's not Amazon.com, obviously, but there's usually maybe Amazon is spelled wrong or there's a bunch of other things in there.
They found 1 in 11 of domains created in May were already flagged as malicious or suspicious.
It is all about getting people to see something really exciting, in this case, a really great deal, and to just trust that they're already on Amazon, even though they aren't.
It's not just fake websites. Shoppers may also come across fake Amazon storefronts or sellers that mimic the real site experience. These pages look identical to product pages and use urgency tactics to steal payment details. With AI, Jeremy says it's even harder to tell the difference.
Now it looks identical.
Before adding an item to your cart, double check the URL. Look for any extra characters, hyphenated brand names, or unusual endings. If you receive an unexpected email or text about your Amazon account, don't click on the link. Open a browser and navigate directly to the official website. For extra protection, use secure payment methods like credit cards.
Just taking the 20 seconds to think through where you are and what you're trying to do is usually enough to make sure that you're making an informed decision.
All right, thanks to Bianca Beltran for that report. Experts say be careful when using a search engine to shop online because sponsored results often come up first, but they may not always be legitimate. Coming up, history made at this year's World Cup by superstar Cristiano Ronaldo. When we come back, we're going to tell you what record he set on the pitch yesterday during Portugal's big win. Got the details next. We're back now at the 2026 NBA Draft. Dreams came true last night for some of basketball's brightest prospects. The draft kicked off last night here in New York City with the Washington Wizards selecting BYU forward AJ Debonsa. He is the #1 pick overall. Across the board, this was touted as one of the most highly anticipated drafts in recent memory. In fact, many fans and experts are calling this the deepest draft since LeBron James' name was called out of high school back in 2003. Now, heading into the first round, Debonsa was one of 3 prospects making a case to be the top pick. Now that the debate is over, he says he's meeting the moment by getting ready for all the work that lies ahead.
I mean, I know I have a lot of work to do, but obviously this night is just a celebration of all the hard work that I've done in the past. So tonight I'm going to celebrate, but, I got to get on the plane tomorrow morning, and I'll probably work out tomorrow if I can, if they let me.
The Utah Jazz took Kansas guard Darren Peterson with the 2nd pick, and with the 3rd pick, the Memphis Grizzlies selected forward Cameron Boozer from Duke. The second round of the draft gets underway later tonight. And in the World Cup, we are entering the final round of group stage matches today. Several nations, including the U.S., have already punched their tickets to the knockout round. But now we're getting to the business end of the tournament, where one goal or one moment can completely change the course of World Cup history. One of the biggest stories this morning is how Cristiano Ronaldo silenced his doubters and etched his name into the record books yet again. Played a big role in Portugal's blowout victory over Uzbekistan yesterday. The 41-year-old is now the first person ever to score in 6 different World Cup tournaments. MLS analyst, former U.S. women's national team member Casey White joins us here in studio with all the latest World Cup headlines. Good to have you with us. We've been talking about Lionel Messi, the history he's made. Now Ronaldo in the history books here. What does this World Cup mean to him, do you think?
The largest differentiator in a player like a Ronaldo, like a Messi, those players, is the psychological factor that they bring. And to be able to have tough games at times, but then able to bounce back. That's exactly what we saw from Cristiano Ronaldo in his performance yesterday. Not only the technical and tactical pieces he possesses at a world-class level, but the ability to mentally perform as well.
So we are now seeing each team play twice at the group stage. Who's impressing you right now? There's obviously the obvious ones, but is anyone surprising you right now?
Norway has been a big surprise. Everyone knows Erling Haaland, if you follow the game, is a top goal scorer. But what they've done to have 6 points and have a team effort as well has been surprising. Morocco was a semifinalist in 2022, and people were wondering, is that a fluke or are they going to be a top team? They've come out, done extremely well. And Cape Verde, that's the other one that everyone is so excited about. We have a Major League Soccer player and Steven Moreira who plays for them. He's a top player, and he has performed incredibly well.
I have to say, I was at the Norway, you mentioned Norway-Senegal match the other night, and I was, when Haaland scored twice, I was actually behind the net, a little ways back behind the net for both of those goals.
Lucky you.
Incredible to see him play in person, and the Norway fans, the row.
It's unbelievable.
Like, it looks exhausting, but it's something fun, and I think everyone's getting into that right now. Okay, so we know groups A, B, and C. They're the ones playing the last matches of the group stage today. What are the storylines we're keeping an eye on as we try to see who's going to advance, who maybe tries to slide in under some of they come in third in the group, but they still make it through? What are you looking for?
The first game today, Canada versus Switzerland. Canada has 8 Major League Soccer players in that game. Maxime Crepeau in goal has had wonderful performances. Both of those teams have the ability to have their own fate in their own hands. So they are going to go after one another, try to get 3 points, and have a really competitive game. Scotland as well plays Haiti. They're going to have, they play Brazil. They're going to have a big performance in this one.
You mentioned the need to score points. It's not just winning or stuff. Walk us through as we get to this point, the tiebreakers, how these work, how some of the third place rule, how that can move some people into the knockout, even if they don't finish in the top 2 in their group. What is it we're keeping an eye on?
The biggest difference for a group stage for the top 2 teams advancing is the head-to-head if they are tied on points. So that's the differentiator for first and second. For the third place teams, 8 are going to advance. It's most points that is going to be the most important for them to be able to figure out who they're going to play. And that is a big piece for the United States as they look to see who their matchup is going to be.
Yeah, so we know the U.S. is now going to be through, but they still have one more match to play. What's important for them to do in that match as they prepare then for the knockout?
For Mauricio Pochettino, our manager, it's about balancing the roster. Don't have any unnecessary players go through injuries, not anyone on yellow card accumulation, but also can they keep their rhythm going? Because they have had an incredible start so far, and they want to keep that going into the round of 32.
So who are you looking at right now? Who are you feeling right now?
For the United States, I am excited just to watch Pulisic come back into the game.
Mm-hmm.
I am always feeling Argentina. I am a big Leo Messi fan, so I have to say that since I was a kid, I was a Diego Maradona fan for Argentina. I always don't bet against the defending champion as well.
Okay, that's good. That's some good advice. It comes from an expert. Casey, good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank
we
you.
appreciate it. That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. Don't go anywhere, though. The news continues right now. Good Wednesday morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Joe Fryer. Savannah is on assignment. Right now on Morning News Now, summer scorcher. Millions of people across the country facing heat alerts today with potential record-breaking temperatures. The hot weather fueling fast-moving wildfires out west in Utah. We're going to let you know what you can expect when we check in with meteorologist Angie Lassman. Presidential pushback. The Senate joining the House in passing a war powers resolution calling for an end to the war with Iran. This as Secretary of State Marco Rubio kicks off a visit to the Middle East for talks about that agreement with Iran.
We know what they agreed to. I don't know why they have to say the things they say. Whatever their internal or domestic politics is, I guess they'll navigate it. But we know what they agreed to do, and now they'll either do it or they won't. And if they do, the process moves forward, and if they don't, the president will have some decisions to make.
The latest as the war now approaches the 4-month mark this weekend. Voters in several states casting their ballots in key primary races that we're watching this morning. New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani flexing his influence with candidates he supported coming out on top. We're also going to bring you the results in New York and other states, places that could shape this year's midterms. And history made at this year's World Cup by no other than superstar Cristiano Ronaldo, the 41-year-old becoming the first player to score in 6 different World Cups. Well, some of the highlights and look ahead to another day of action, with teams trying to make it into that knockout stage. Let's start this hour with the extreme weather that's moving across the country. Overnight, strong storms toppled trees and snapped power lines throughout the south. This morning, power crews are busy trying to restore service so people can stay cool with these unusually warm temperatures. Well, in North Texas, a storm created dangerous conditions for drivers as it sent baseball-sized hail slamming into cars, shattering windshields. NBC News correspondent Priscilla Thompson is in steamy Houston this morning. She joins us with the latest. Priscilla, good morning.
Yeah, Joe, good morning. Folks here in Houston are up early getting those swims in before the sun here really starts to bear down because it is going to be a scorcher. Across the country, millions are on alert for dangerous heat and severe storms.
This morning, a major summer swelter is underway.
It is hot, like not just hot, like scorching heat.
Millions of Americans are feeling the heat nationwide.
Really hot.
Hot. Along the Gulf Coast, scorching temperatures and stifling humidity, making it feel like triple digits.
But I feel like this is July, August weather.
World Cup fans at Houston's Fan Fest taking advantage of misting stations to beat the heat. While out west, hot weather and dry conditions are fueling fast-moving fires. Across Utah, tens of thousands of acres have burned. Severe storms pelting downtown Colorado Springs with hail. And northwest Texas, too, where hailstones the size of grapefruits shattered windshields.
Oh! My God! God!
Almost all the way!
Oh!
Shield. Cover your eyes.
While in Oklahoma,
the entire truck is shaking.
Torrential rain dumping up to 8 inches in a matter of hours, turning streets into swift-moving streams. First responders rescuing motorists trapped in fast-rising floodwaters. Meanwhile, parts of the South are cleaning up. Crews in Tennessee and Alabama moving mounds of debris to reopen roadways. From severe storms to soaring temps, the summer of extremes is just heating up.
And here in Houston, it is going to feel like 103 degrees today, Joe. And I will tell you, the folks in the Pacific Northwest are also really going to feel it with high temperatures 5 to 15 degrees above average.
And not a lot of AC in that part of the country. Priscilla, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Let's take a closer look at how the severe weather might be impacting your area. Andrew Lastman joins us now with your morning News Now weather. Angie, good morning.
Hi there, Joe. Let's keep it rolling with the heat, and then we'll get into the potential for some of those stronger storms that we could see here as the day goes on. 19 million people across, no surprise, the Southwest. Notice we do have a couple of locations across places like the Pacific Northwest that are also under heat advisories because of what Priscilla just mentioned. But Los Angeles, Phoenix, Tucson, all included as our temperatures surge into the triple digits. If you're not into the triple digits across this region today, you sure are close. Bakersfield at 99 degrees. We've got 98 for Salt Lake City, 104 for Las Vegas, 111 in Phoenix. And then you add the humidity onto these really incredible temperatures across the South, specifically parts of Texas I'm going to be watching today. 96 in Dallas, expected to hit 101 for that peak heat index as well. So really uncomfortable conditions. Another day where you're going to want to try and find a cool spot. The AC cranked up, finding a way to cool down is going to be a must here. And it's not just a today problem. This is extended all the way into the next couple of days. Not a whole lot of relief in sight, especially across the southern tier of the country. Dallas hangs out into those high 90s for the extended period into the weekend. We've got parts of Arizona and New Mexico well into the triple digits all the way into the weekend. Look at Friday in Phoenix, 109. It doesn't get much better on Saturday. We've got 107. So even places like Denver, you're into the 90s for Friday and Saturday. Kansas City, you're near 90 by the time Saturday rolls around. So a lot to deal with when it comes to the heat, but we're also going to watch for some of those ingredients kind of influencing the development of some thunderstorms as the day goes on. But we've already got some of that happening right now across the midsection of the country and stretching down from Louisiana to Oklahoma and up into parts of Kansas. We've got flood watches. We've got the flash flood warnings you can see in some of these spots in northern Louisiana and southern Arkansas. And that's because, again, we've got some really heavy rain happening over those areas. But we've also got all the ingredients there to see some of these thunderstorms become quite strong as the day goes on. We're looking at the timing of the strongest of those storms late afternoon into the evening hours. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't see some of your plans being ruined by these thunderstorms and that rain here throughout this region as we get through the first half of the day as well. But later today, specifically these enhanced risk areas and the slight risk areas where you see the oranges and the yellows, Denver, Colby, stretching down just west of Amarillo and including Salt Lake City, that's where you'll see those thunderstorms firing up, and they could have the potential for some really large hail, up to 4 inches, as well as those wind gusts up to 75 miles per hour, and we can't rule out a couple of tornadoes. By tomorrow, still all the ingredients in place, and we'll look for that flood risk extended from Kansas all the way to Illinois. But we'll see those kind of stronger storms in the afternoon hours. But we could have some gusty storms in the morning as well as we get through your day tomorrow. So the hail, the wind gusts, the tornadoes, all going to be on the table, still including a large area stretching from Illinois all the way up through Wyoming and south towards Texas, Amarillo, Denver, going to be included in that. So really, Joe, just another couple of days of of the heat to stay with us as well as that severe risk. So a lot to cover when it comes to the weather.
A lot of summer weather there. All right, Angie, thank you so much. In Washington, the divide is growing among Republicans over the deal to end the war with Iran. The Senate passed a war powers resolution yesterday. The largely symbolic measure urges President Trump to withdraw U.S. troops from the region or seek congressional approval. NBC News Chief Justice and National Affairs correspondent Kelly O'Donnell has the latest from the White House. Kelly, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Today, the president will meet with some skeptics in a place you might not expect, a lunch with Senate Republicans. There are concerns about the diplomatic, political, and financial costs of the Iran war, just as the Pentagon is asking for another $80 billion for that conflict. President Trump facing a new divide within his own party. Republicans restless over any peace deal with Iran.
The short answer is you can't trust Iran.
If the Iranian government is just jacking us around, I think it's very important to maintain America's credibility.
Those concerns leading the Senate to pass an Iranian war powers resolution.
On this motion, the yeas are 50, the nays are 48.
The mostly symbolic measure urging the president to withdraw U.S. troops or get congressional approval. The White House dismissed it, saying the war is already over and the measure has no force of law. On the midterms campaign trail in Pennsylvania, President Trump claiming his Iran agreement includes nuclear verification.
We're leaving them without any nuclear capacity, and they've agreed to that.
However, Iranian officials said they would not permit inspectors. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, visiting Gulf allies this week, says Iran's denials are about internal politics.
We know what they agreed to do, and now they'll either do it or they won't.
Today, the president heads to Capitol Hill to deal with his own internal politics. Republican senators frustrated by the president's inexperienced choice to oversee national intelligence and his demand they pass an election security bill requiring proof of citizenship that does not have enough votes. The Republican leader expects to air out their differences.
I am very direct with the president. I shoot straight with him and vice versa.
But the president is keeping up the pressure.
We have to be able to get voter ID. So John is a leader, and hopefully he can get the votes.
Some of the tension between President Trump and Senate Republicans comes from Mr. Trump's opposition to two incumbent Republicans who lost their primary elections and will be out of office, as well as policy and personnel decisions some Republicans say make their jobs harder. Joe?
All right, Kelly, thank you. Election results are in for some key primary races and runoffs across 4 states. The winners will help set the stage in the battle for the control of Congress this fall. Here in New York, Mayor Zohran Mamdani put his popularity to the test. He endorsed 3 congressional candidates. All 3 came out on top last night.
We are showing there is a new path for politics in our city and in our country. We are showing that last June, a year ago tomorrow, was not an anomaly. It was not the end. It was the beginning.
NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Julie Sirkin is here to help us break down some of the results. So let's start here in New York, a huge night for progressives here.
Yeah, a major night, Joe, and a huge warning sign, too, I think, for Democratic leaders, for establishment, because even in some of these races where I was talking to sources, they really thought that they would come out on top, especially in New York 13th district. I know we were just talking about this, where Congressman Espaillat, he lost, and he was the chair of the Hispanic caucus. He had so much backing behind him. And then kind of a last-minute endorsement from Mayor Mamdani against his opponent, who ended up winning, Daria-Liza Avila Chevalier. That was totally an upset. I don't think people expected that. New York 10, you had Brad Lander, who ended up beating Dan Goldman, who was the incumbent. Israel, a completely potent issue in that race. I spoke to some of Lander's supporters in the district yesterday. Take a listen to what they told me.
We were kind of sad that it came down that we have to make a choice between Brad Lander and Goldman because they're so similar on most of the issues. But I voted for Brad Lander. He was our city council member. I feel like we know him really well.
I feel like Lander caring about the plight of Palestinians resonates with me, but he does so in a way that also just respects human rights for all.
Democrats totally divided, changed on this issue of Israel. I think leaders need to pay attention because a similar story happened in New York 7, where the candidate that was endorsed by the outgoing Congresswoman, Nydia Velázquez, he lost, Antonio Reynoso, even though he had more experience and lived in New York longer than Claire Valdez, his opponent.
Let's look at South Carolina. Republicans who are running for governor. Interesting situation here. President Trump, in the end, endorsing two candidates. What happened there?
Well, President Trump decided that he only wants to bet on a winning horse, and he didn't think that Pam Yvette, who was the lieutenant governor, could potentially be that winning horse. And he was right, because look at the results you have there, what happened last night. And that is pretty stunning, the difference in the percentage points there, because a couple of weeks ago in the primary elections, Yvette came out on top, edging out by a couple of points Alan Wilson, who not only is the attorney general for the state, but he's also the son of a Republican congressman. The president really needs to keep Republicans together on the Hill. He still has a lot to pass, as you just ran through earlier. And so this was a huge moment for the president, last minute deciding to throw his endorsement behind both candidates. And it shows you the power not only that Mamdani has over the Democratic Party, at least in New York, but also the power, of course, the president continues to have over his base.
Of course, sort of in the middle there. It's not always all extreme left or extreme right. We can look at Maryland. We can look at Utah, two very different states, but some key messages coming out of elections there, right?
Yeah, the establishment seemed to do better in those areas. So I think when Democrats are looking ahead to the midterms in November 2028, they need to kind of look at all of this together, and that won't be easy for them. In Maryland, you had the candidate endorsed by Steny Hoyer, used to be the Democratic leader. He was a force in that seat. He held it for decades. He endorsed Adrian Boffo, and he ended up winning in that seat. It was a crowded field. 23 candidates were in it at one point, so that was huge. In Utah, you had Ben McAdams, who was the last Democrat to hold that seat in 2021. He ended up winning by a lot against a candidate backed by Bernie Sanders, a more progressive Democrat. But that seat is huge, Joe, because this is the first time in years, as I mentioned, the Democrats will have a shot at having representation in Congress in Utah because of a gerrymandering, court-ordered map that has been redrawn to prohibit and try to prevent gerrymandering. That went through, the court ordered it, and so now you have Democrats with a big chance to pick up an additional seat in November, something they really need as they're trying to flip the House majority.
Of course, when we talk about Maryland, it's not just November we're looking at, but a lot of people are also thinking about 2028. Wes Moore, obviously the current governor there, someone who's on a lot of people's minds, right?
Yeah, he is. And the Republican side of the aisle was interesting in that race because he's going to face off against Dan Cox in November. He's somebody that already ran against Wes Moore in 2022. Wes Moore ended up beating him by more than 30 points. And some criticize Wes Moore and Democrats for putting propping up the more extreme Republican candidate that they know won't win in a blue state like Maryland in November.
All right. Julie Sirkin, good to have you with us. Thank you so much. There are new concerns about safety in the nation's skies this morning. Airlines are warning many near misses never become public. This as Congress takes a hard look at the aviation system following a series of close calls, aging technology, and a shortage of air traffic controllers. NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello joins us now from Reagan National Airport with the latest. Tom, good morning.
Hey, Joe, senators called this hearing because they've been very concerned about the number of close calls and even crashes over the past 18 months. And it comes as Congress and the FAA are under pressure to approve this new technology, which a lot of experts say could prevent future deadly accidents. Confusion and stress in the tower and in the cockpits.
Delta 2331 going around because of America.
A Delta flight forced to abort its landing in Boston Saturday after a cockpit collision alert warned that an American jet was just 300 feet away, about to take off from an intersecting runway.
American 3161, where you going? You cleared us for takeoff, 3161.
Now, an industry group representing the nation's airline says there are far more close calls than ever reported.
There are hundreds of them every single day.
Among the recent high-profile close calls, two Southwest planes that came within 500 feet of each other over Nashville.
Schedule your landing clearance, schedule your approach clearance.
And an American regional jet that aborted its landing, then flew across the path of an Air Canada flight at JFK.
You're flying through the approach course running 31 west, correct immediately.
Now the biggest pilots union is again calling on the FAA or Congress to require precise GPS-based air traffic receivers called ADS-B in all aircraft. That would show pilots all surrounding air traffic.
It's essential. We need it. It's technology that's readily available.
The NTSB has been calling for it for 18 years, but the American Airlines jet involved in the midair crash over Washington was not equipped with ADS-B receivers.
Had it been the law, we would have prevented the crash over DCA, and 67 souls would still be with us.
The FAA chief, the former head of Republic Airways, reluctant to order airlines to add the technology. The agency still struggling to hire air traffic controllers, despite a hiring push that aims to add 6,900 more controllers by 2028. But the National Air Traffic Controllers Union says that's about 3,800 employees short of what safety demands. So the FAA is out with a statement following these comments from Airlines for America. The FAA saying to NBC News, most reported incidents are not close calls, and pilots and air traffic controllers use advanced technologies that alert them to potential conflicts so they can take quick action. The FAA also really pushing back, suggesting that because of AI, they're tracking everything that happens in the nation's skies, and that this claim from Airlines for America is a bit exaggerated. Joe?
All right, Tom, thank you. Olympic gold medal skier Bodie Miller is facing misdemeanor drug charges following an arrest in Idaho earlier this month. That's according to court records, which show Miller was arrested on June 6th in eastern Idaho. He has pleaded not guilty. NBC News correspondent Shaquille Brewster joins us now with more on this. So, Shaq, what more are we learning from these court records about Miller's arrests and the charges he's facing?
Well, Joe, this morning we're learning a lot more, but I'll tell you there's still a lot that we don't know. And we do see in those court records that there's even body camera video of the interaction that has not yet been released. You mentioned he's facing those two misdemeanor charges, one for possession of a controlled substance, the other for possession of drug paraphernalia. Now, according to those court documents, his arrest took place on June 6th. And the court documents say that in Fremont County, Idaho, he was arrested for carrying 4.1 grams of so-called magic mushrooms, that they were in a white dispensary bag. And he knew, according to the police records, that these items and that this drug was illegal. But court documents show that he posted a $5,000 cash bond the same day that he was arrested. We saw his mugshot that was released by authorities. And we do know we can expect to see him back in court on July 29th. Still a lot of questions about what exactly happened and what led to that initial interaction with police. But as you mentioned, two misdemeanor counts. We'll see him back in court next month.
Shaq, as we also mentioned, Miller has pleaded not guilty to these charges. I know he posted a statement on Instagram yesterday detailing his version of events. What's he saying?
Yeah, and it's a differing account from what we're seeing in those police documents and in those court records. I mentioned that police documents said he was arrested for that possession of so-called magic mushrooms. Well, in a statement that he posted on Instagram late last night, we'll pull it up for you, he explained that he was pulled over for accelerating while passing another vehicle on a highway in Idaho. He says, my friend who was traveling with me had a small amount of cannabis and a cannabis pipe in his possession, which I was unaware of. He says we fully cooperated with the officer, and he's hopeful that the charges will be dropped once the facts are reviewed. We should note that in the state of Idaho, cannabis is also illegal. It's also considered a controlled substance. But there's a discrepancy here between what Miller is saying he was arrested for and what those court documents and court records show.
Shaq, tell us a little more about Miller's life and what it's been like since he retired from competition. We know, and we've covered, that he's had to deal with some really tragic events.
Absolutely, Joe. You know, some real highs and some real lows. This is someone who is considered one of the best male downhill skiers in history. He has 6 Olympic medals, including a gold that he picked up in 2010. He has dozens of World Cup victories, and he's one of the only male skiers who has won World Cup victories in every single discipline of that sport. So he's literally in the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Hall of Fame. But after he retired, he lost his daughter, young daughter, to a drowning. So he has also been someone, both he and his wife have been someone who has advocated for safety around the pool. We saw him on the Today Show just a couple of weeks ago, both he and his wife advocating for and sharing tips with other families and with other parents of how to keep their kids safe in water and around pools. So also, this is someone who has had to deal with a lot of tragedy after he had immense success in his skiing career, Joe.
Yeah, no doubt they've made this a huge issue for them, and I do remember seeing them here at 30 Rock just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Shaq, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Much more to come here on Morning News Now. Later this hour, the Supreme Court issuing a rare ruling siding against a religious rights argument. We're going to break down that decision. Up first, though, record-breaking temperatures keeping many European countries in a stranglehold. We're going to take you to Paris to find out how people are dealing with this dangerous heat. We're back now with the latest on that deadly heat wave that is gripping Europe. The continent is sweltering with record-shattering temperatures, reaching triple-digit temperatures again today in the UK, Germany, Spain, and France. You can see people are doing just about anything they can to try and find relief. NBC News international correspondent Danielle Hamamdjian is in Paris. Joins us now with the latest. Danielle, typically Paris would be a welcoming assignment. Maybe not right now, though. Good morning.
Good morning. You know, people are walking around. I'm not seeing many smiles. A lot of people hot and bothered, Joe. It is hot here today, hotter than 99% of the rest of the planet. And most people you see behind me, some residents, but mostly tourists who are determined to power through this heat wave. This morning, scorching temperatures are gripping much of Europe. From Paris to Madrid to London, locals and tourists are scrambling to stay cool, lining up for fans and turning to famous fountains to beat the heat. France suffering through its hottest day since records began in 1947, with one town on Tuesday hitting 112 degrees. The extreme heat here also turning deadly, with authorities saying at least 45 people have drowned just this past week. The heat wave forcing iconic Paris tourist attractions like the Eiffel Tower and the Louvre to close early. How would you describe the heat in Paris today?
Unbearably hot. It's just ridiculous.
In the UK, a rare red weather warning now coming into force, with hundreds of schools shutting and National Rail urging passengers to only travel if absolutely necessary. The extreme heat drawing global attention at a climate conference in London.
London isn't just calling. It's cooking.
Experts say human-driven climate change is making heat waves more frequent and more intense. And to make things worse, much of Europe isn't built for this kind of heat. Air conditioning is rare. Only about 20% of households have it.
I feel like all the buildings being made of stone, brick, it holds it in, radiates. It's not like New York where you've got newer buildings that are made to not hold this heat.
With temperatures still climbing, forecasters warning the worst is still ahead with little relief in sight. And Joe, on the way here this morning, I asked the cab driver how he was coping with the heat, and he sort of just shook his head and said he started work early today, might as well drive around, he said, since the car was the only place he could find some AC. Meanwhile, thousands of Parisians have been cooling off in the canals, and no doubt there'll be many more there tonight. Joe, back to you.
Yeah, that cab driver might be sleeping in the car tonight. Danielle, thank you so much. Now to more international news this morning. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un unveiling plans to build new warships in an ambitious naval expansion project. NBC News international correspondent Claudio Lavanga joins us now from Rome to take us around the world in 60 seconds. Claudio, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. That's right. According to KCNA, the North Korean state-run news agency, Kim Jong-un on Tuesday unveiled and inaugurated the country's largest ever warship, a 5,000-ton destroyer. Now, in a speech at the shipyard, Kim Jong-un said the warship represents a new chapter in North Korea's military history, saying that its navy has put an end to over 70 years of stagnation and will now grow to be admirable beyond imagination. Let's go now to Sydney in Australia, where a woman in critical condition after she was bitten by a shark more than a week ago was woken briefly by doctors from an induced coma for enough time to tell her mom and partner she loves them and to ask if her daughter was okay. On June 13th, 34-year-old Leah Stewart was attacked by a shark and suffered multiple bites on her arms and legs and extreme blood loss. She remains in intensive care. And let's stay in Australia, where a 58-year-old man in Canberra has been recognized by the Guinness World Records as the loudest person in the world. His name is Joseph McCrail Beta, a professional air conditioner cleaner and, no wonder, a town crier. Take a listen.
Oh, yay! Oh, yay! Welcome to Canberra!
Now, Joe, that was loud, but it was even louder when he shouted the word now at 122.4 decibels. Just to give you an idea of how loud that is in the noise range of a chainsaw, an aircraft, a jet aircraft taking off, and an ambulance at close range. Maybe, Joe, we can ask him to shout news now so loud that he will wake up audiences in the morning.
Yeah, there you go. He could anchor an entire newscast and just wake everyone up. I love that. Claudio, thank you so much. Good to have you with us. Coming up, could a simple summer stroll hold the key to lasting brain health? After the break, we're going to shine a light on some new research that's linking good old-fashioned sunlight to a lower risk of dementia. Your weekly medical checkup is next. The doctor will see you now. We're back now with a growing wildfire that's forcing thousands of evacuations in central Utah. The so-called Iron Fire has burned more than 31,000 acres. Authorities are investigating what started the fire, but said they believe it was sparked by a person. It's the latest in a string of wildfires just 1 month into this fire season. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson has a closer look at new technology that aims to detect fires sooner.
Controls, check. Flight instruments, check. As the return of the warm weather signals the start of fire season, in Montana, these air tanker pilots perform their signature feat of aerial precision, taking to the skies to stop wildfires in their tracks. In the coming months, they'll fly dozens of missions, dropping thousands of gallons of fire retardant on wildfires across the country. So far this year, wildfires have burned almost 2.5 million acres, nearly 2 times the average of the last 10 years. But as fires grow more complex, so does the response, from satellites in space to mobile firefighting bases on the ground.
We used to have fire seasons, right? Now we have what we call fire years.
And many of the largest and most destructive wildfire years on record in the U.S. have occurred in the last 2 decades. Last year, the deadly Los Angeles wildfires causing an estimated $61 billion in damages, making 2025 the costliest year on record. The key to stopping them, early detection and rapid response.
There's a period of time that can be several days where the fire is invisible to all the stakeholders except satellites. And once the fire takes off and is visible, it's usually too late.
Munich-based Aurora Tech is taking fire spotting into the space age, building satellites to detect small fires before they grow out of control. Then the platform uses weather patterns, vegetation maps, and other data to predict where it could spread.
This allows responders in the ground to make operational decisions so they can decide to avoid the fire, change the containment strategy, position the mitigations in different ways.
Once a fire is detected, responders have to coordinate aircraft, crews, and equipment across multiple agencies.
It's all about that initial attack component and being able to put assets onto a fire as soon as possible.
That's where Track Plus comes in, as a sort of all-in-one air traffic control for firefighters.
What we do is able to present information to the dispatchers in order to show where the fire location is, which aircraft are available to respond, and what the capabilities of those aircraft are.
With a plan in place, crews on the ground and in the air now need large amounts of fire retardant. Perimeter Solutions, a leading supplier of fire suppression agents in the U.S., says those new tools are key.
That allows us to pre-position our equipment to make sure we're ready before the fire gets there.
Perimeter has also developed a fleet of trucks that can quickly transform into a firefighting base.
And what that allows the operators to do is bring in helicopters or even fixed-wing aircraft to be able to load closer to the fire, improve their turnarounds, and improve the speed of being able to operate and attack the fire.
And all that work, the technology, the preps for this moment.
We suited up for a practice flight with Neptune Aviation, a private aerial firefighting company, to see how it all comes together. When the call comes in, these pilots have to be airborne in 15 minutes. It's wild. with a tanker loaded with 3,000 gallons of retardant.
So this is what an airdrop is like. We're going down to about 150 feet. All of a sudden, they turn the brakes down. They slow down the speed. They get right over top of their target, and then they let go.
It ever get dicey when you do that? Yeah, turbulence, and, you know, you have to be a pretty decent mountain flying pilot. If it does feel dicey, you're probably doing something wrong. I like to say it's as dangerous as you make it. As dangerous as you make it.
To fight a major wildfire, these pilots might repeat this process up to 15 times in a single day. Neptune's pilots were among those that battled the wildfires in Los Angeles.
Must have been pretty tough.
Yes, we were at all of those fires, but just the pure devastation of it all. It's hard to watch, but to know that we're a part of helping is a good feeling.
Neptune President Jennifer Drawn says the fires underscored the need for better tools.
If we can predict the behavior with all this new technology, we can then have more information, more tools in our toolbox to do what we need to do, right?
Cutting-edge tech paired with skilled pilots driven by purpose.
They are heroes in the sky. They're so humble. They don't think of themselves that way, but I do.
Steve Patterson, NBC News.
Time now for our weekly medical checkup. This morning, we're looking at an alarming new report that says cancer resources aren't reaching some of the people who need them most. Plus, we're standing up for our health. Literally, we've got more on some of the health risks that come with sitting down for too long. Here to break down these health headlines is NBC News medical reporter Dr. Akshay Syal. Dr. Syal, good to have you with us. So let's start. We've got this brand new annual report from the American Association for Cancer Research. Finds despite that major decline in cancer deaths in the U.S., that's the good news, there are just some clear disparities for certain groups. Walk us through what we're learning.
Correct. So this isn't a report, Joe, from the AACR, American Society for Cancer Research. And essentially, this is something that they started doing in 2020. Back when the pandemic first hit, because cancer deaths have dropped dramatically over recent years. We made tremendous progress thanks to new treatments, better screenings, even vaccines that have lowered cancer deaths. It doesn't tell the whole story, and you can see some of these disparities on your screen here. Black and American Indians have the highest overall cancer death rates. Just some examples. Black Americans are 2 times more likely to die from multiple myeloma. Black women 35% more likely to die from breast cancer than white women. Rural Americans more likely to get colorectal cancer, and cervical cancer death rates 49% higher among women living in persistent poverty. Those last two, Joe, super important because we have screening, right? For colorectal cancer, we do colonoscopies. For cervical cancer, we can give a vaccine, and we can also screen for it. The HPV vaccine is largely preventable, and so that's why those last two are really, really striking to me, because they are something that we can do something about. And so the sort of takeaway here is while cancer death rates have dropped about 35% since the 1990s, it doesn't quite tell the whole story. Certain pockets or certain populations still have a much higher death rate. So doctor's orders. We love doctor's orders on the show. It is 7:30 in the morning. Some orders from us. Get screened. Make sure that you are getting screened for things like colon cancer, cervical cancer, prostate cancer. There are such great screening tools available. And if you have a family history of cancer, please bring it up with your doctor, because you could be screened much earlier than the rest of the population.
And important to have these discussions, realize not everyone has had the same access to some of the tests and things that we have in other parts of the area. All right, up next, a new study talks about the importance of sunlight and brain health. We've got this new research finding sunlight linked to a lower risk of dementia, which means you got to get out for those walks. Walk us through this one.
Correct. So 16% lower risk of dementia among those who got significant amounts of daylight. So what does that mean? They took participants out of the UK, and they sort of had them wear these wearables that can track daylight exposure. And what they found that, people who get about, they said 0.7 hours per day, about 45 minutes a day of sunlight exposure, had a lower risk of dementia. And, what the researchers said was, this association was stronger than other things we talk about for lowering risk of dementia, such as obesity. For example, and other sort of metabolic syndrome markers. This association, for whatever reason, was stronger. We think it may be because daylight exposure can lower risk of neuroinflammation or inflammation in the brain. So doctor's orders here: start the day with the sun. Make sure you are getting outside bright and early. I'm curious, by the time you get to work, is the sun even out?
No. Every now and then, if I this time of year, but otherwise, no, it's usually not. But for most people, it's a good opportunity to do that.
Correct.
That's some good advice. All right, finally, the British Journal of Sports Medicine, the latest to tell us something we just know, we keep hearing. Americans are sitting way too much during the day. So what can we do to change this?
As much as 6.5 to 9.5 hours a day we are sitting. We know that sitting is linked to a higher risk of cardiometabolic syndrome, things like high blood pressure, obesity, insulin resistance, diabetes, whole host of things. Americans are just sitting too much. They are scrolling too much while they are sitting. So this study, Joe, found that hourly movement, taking breaks for 5 minutes a day, could help mitigate that risk. And those people who did those breaks, that they tracked them over time, and they found that it improved mood and it lessened their fatigue and sort of boosted their overall morale overall. So another reason to sort of get up, and our doctor's orders here. Why don't we practice?
I'm going to do the orders today. Here we go.
Why don't we do the new standing up? How many people do
stand
that?
up. I like that.
So I'm going to check on you every time you do this show.
Okay.
Come on, I'm going to ring a little alarm bell. Make sure you are standing up. I'm curious. Do you do this when you're working in an office regularly?
We have standing desks here. We just actually moved into some new offices, so I'm standing much more because it's so much easier with the desk rising. I think those are a game changer.
Yeah. Take a break, walk around. You know what I always say is take a meeting on a phone and walk around. It really can make a big difference.
All right, some good advice here. We're not going to do this for the rest of the show, but it's nice to have a little break 42 minutes into the show here. Dr. Sayal, good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
Coming up, we've got a consumer alert for all you savvy shoppers out there scouting for some summer deals. Why some security experts are starting to sound the alarm over fake websites designed to dupe folks who are looking to save this season. We're watching your wallet next. Welcome back. The Supreme Court just ruled against a Rastafarian man who alleges that Louisiana prison officials violated his religious rights. Now, Rastafarianism is an Afrocentric social and religious movement that originated in Jamaica in the 1930s. Back in 2020, for this specific case, officers handcuffed Damon Landor to a chair, shaved his dreadlocks against his will while he was serving time for a drug-related charge. Landor says he should have been protected under a federal law that requires state and local prisons to respect an inmate's right to practice religion. NBC News legal analyst Danny Ceballos is here to actually break down this ruling for us. So this was 6-3. This was the conservative majority here. They basically said the law only applies to prisons that accept federal funding. It does not allow for claims against individual officers. Break this one down for us.
Congress enacted this law pursuant to what's called its spending power. There are some things that Congress can control. For example, making money, dollar bills. That's something that's exclusively a federal power. Armies, for example, you can't have a Navy. North Carolina can't decide it's going to have a Navy because that's exclusively Congress's power. But in the areas Congress can't control, it's very clever. It uses something else called the spending power. And that's essentially a contract. A good example is back in the 80s. Congress said, you know what? We want the national drinking age to be 21. But we don't have the power to do that. But we have another clever way of doing it. We'll say, hey, all you states, we want your drinking age to be 21. And as a condition of federal highway funding, which is very valuable to the states, you must make your drinking age 21, and then we'll give you the money. If you don't, no money. It's a contract, right? So where Congress can't directly legislate, it can use this spending power. However, this particular law, it only applies to prisons who accept federal funding. It doesn't apply to the individuals who work at the prisons, much as the nurses at a hospital don't consent to be sued by something that the hospital could be sued under a federal law, for example. So that is how this case arrived at the Supreme Court.
We know the 6-3 majority is often ruled in favor of those making sort of religious rights claims. What was different here? Why is it different?
Because this case never reached religion. It had nothing to do with Rastafarian beliefs. It really had nothing to do with hair and whether hair is an expression of religion in prison or out of prison. It never reached that because the narrow issue before the court was not even whether the prison violated the spirit of the law. In fact, Justice Gorsuch suggested in the opinion that this might have violated the spirit or the policy behind this federal law. And in fact, at least in spirit, the prisoner might have been right. That never was reached by the court. The bottom line here was whether or not these individual prison officials, here's the interesting thing. The issue before the court was not whether or not there was a claim against the prison. For some reason unknown, the plaintiff did not pursue his claim against the prison, only against the individuals. The individuals never consented to this contract because they're employees. So there never could be a lawsuit under this federal statute against those prison officials.
Well, we have you. We know we are still waiting on some other major rulings from the Supreme Court this term. What is it we're keeping an eye out for?
Well, I think the most interesting has to be birthright citizenship. But the reality is it's probably not going to go the way that the conservatives want, which is to get rid of birthright citizenship. And I say that loosely because it's not fully getting rid of it and not fully giving it to absolutely everybody who's born in the States. It's a much narrower issue than that. But probably the more compelling, the more important, but maybe the less sexy one is whether or not the president can terminate heads of agencies like the FTC, for example, for cause or if he needs cause. It's not something that people maybe recognize as much as birthright citizenship, but it's certainly more important to the operation of the country.
That issue. Here's, of course, Lisa Cook, who's on the Federal Reserve, something we talk about all the time, and whether the president has the right to fire her. Still waiting on that decision. All right, Danny Savalos, good to have you with us. Thank you so much. Now to a consumer alert for anyone shopping those big summer sales this week. Security experts warn a growing number of scammers are now using fake websites to try and steal your hard-earned cash. Bianca Beltran from NBC Boston explains how to spot a phony web page and protect your wallet.
The companies are household names. You think you'd recognize their websites when you see them. And there's only one Amazon, right?
That is what these scammers are banking on, that you will not check twice, that you'll just say, oh, wait, I got this great deal for a mug or a TV or whatever it is.
A report from Checkpoint Software found cybercriminals are creating fraudulent websites that look like Amazon months in advance. From December to May, nearly 7,000 Amazon-themed domains were registered.
These domains have some sort of Amazon twist to them. It's not Amazon.com, obviously, but there's usually maybe Amazon is spelled wrong or there's a bunch of other things in there.
They found 1 in 11 of domains created in May were already flagged as malicious or suspicious.
It is all about getting people to see something really exciting, in this case, a really great deal, and to just trust that they're already on Amazon, even though they aren't.
It's not just fake websites. Shoppers may also come across fake Amazon storefronts or sellers that mimic the real site experience. These pages look identical to product pages and use urgency tactics to steal payment details. With AI, Jeremy says it's even harder to tell the difference.
Now it looks identical.
Before adding an item to your cart, double check the URL. Look for any extra characters, hyphenated brand names, or unusual endings. If you receive an unexpected email or text about your Amazon account, don't click on the link. Open a browser and navigate directly to the official website. For extra protection, use secure payment methods like credit cards.
Just taking the 20 seconds to think through where you are and what you're trying to do is usually enough to make sure that you're making an informed decision.
All right, thanks to Bianca Beltran for that report. Experts say be careful when using a search engine to shop online because sponsored results often come up first, but they may not always be legitimate. Coming up, history made at this year's World Cup by superstar Cristiano Ronaldo. When we come back, we're going to tell you what record he set on the pitch yesterday during Portugal's big win. Got the details next. We're back now at the 2026 NBA Draft. Dreams came true last night for some of basketball's brightest prospects. The draft kicked off last night here in New York City with the Washington Wizards selecting BYU forward AJ Debonsa. He is the #1 pick overall. Across the board, this was touted as one of the most highly anticipated drafts in recent memory. In fact, many fans and experts are calling this the deepest draft since LeBron James' name was called out of high school back in 2003. Now, heading into the first round, Debonsa was one of 3 prospects making a case to be the top pick. Now that the debate is over, he says he's meeting the moment by getting ready for all the work that lies ahead.
I mean, I know I have a lot of work to do, but obviously this night is just a celebration of all the hard work that I've done in the past. So tonight I'm going to celebrate, but, you know, I got to get on the plane tomorrow morning, and I'll probably work out tomorrow if I can, if they let me.
The Utah Jazz took Kansas guard Darren Peterson with the 2nd pick, and with the 3rd pick, the Memphis Grizzlies selected forward Cameron Boozer from Duke. The 2nd round of the draft gets underway later tonight. And in the World Cup, we are entering the final round of group stage matches today. Several nations, including the U.S., have already punched their tickets to the knockout round. But now we're getting to the business end of the tournament, where one goal or one moment can completely change the course of World Cup history. One of the biggest stories this morning is how Cristiano Ronaldo silenced his doubters and etched his name into the record books yet again. played a big role in Portugal's blowout victory over Uzbekistan yesterday. The 41-year-old is now the first person ever to score in 6 different World Cup tournaments. MLS analyst, former U.S. women's national team member Casey White joins us here in studio with all the latest World Cup headlines. Good to have you with us. We've been talking about Lionel Messi, the history he's made. Now Ronaldo in the history books here. What does this World Cup mean to him, do you think?
The largest differentiator in a player like a Ronaldo, like a Messi, those players, is the psychological factor that they bring. And to be able to have tough games at times, but then able to bounce back. That's exactly what we saw from Cristiano Ronaldo in his performance yesterday. Not only the technical and tactical pieces he possesses at a world-class level, but the ability to mentally perform as well.
So we are now seeing each team play twice at the group stage. Who's impressing you right now? There's obviously the obvious ones, but is anyone surprising you right now?
Norway has been a big surprise. Everyone knows Erling Haaland, if you follow the game, is a top goal scorer. But what they've done to have 6 points and have a team effort as well has been surprising. Morocco was a semifinalist in 2022, and people were wondering, is that a fluke or are they going to be a top team? They've come out, done extremely well, and Cape Verde, that's the other one that everyone is so excited about. We have a Major League Soccer player and Steven Moreira who plays for them. He's a top player, and he has performed incredibly well.
I have to say, I was at the Norway, you mentioned Norway-Senegal match the other night, and I was, when Haaland scored twice, I was actually behind the net, a little ways back behind the net for both of those goals.
Lucky you.
Incredible to see him play in person, and the Norway fans, the row.
It's unbelievable.
Like, it looks exhausting, but it's something fun, and I think everyone's getting into that right now. Okay, so we know groups A, B, and C. They're the ones playing the last matches of the group stage today. What are the storylines we're keeping an eye on as we try to see who's going to advance, who maybe tries to slide in under some of they come in third in the group, but they still make it through? What are you looking for?
The first game today, Canada versus Switzerland. Canada has 8 Major League Soccer players in that game. Maxime Crepeau in goal has had wonderful performances. Both of those teams have the ability to have their own fate in their own hands. So they are going to go after one another, try to get 3 points, and have a really competitive game. Scotland as well plays Haiti. They're going to have to, they play Brazil. They're going to have a big performance in this one.
You mentioned the need to score points. It's not just winning or stuff. Walk us through as we get to this point, the tiebreakers, how these work, how some of the third place rule, how that can move some people into the knockout, even if they don't finish in the top 2 in their group. What is it we're keeping an eye on?
The biggest difference for a group stage for the top 2 teams advancing is the head-to-head if they are tied on points. So that's the differentiator for first and second. For the third place teams, 8 are going to advance. It's most points that is going to be the most important for them to be able to figure out who they're going to play. And that is a big piece for the United States as they look to see who their matchup is going to be.
Yeah, so we know the U.S. is now going to be through, but they still have one more match to play. What's important for them to do in that match as they prepare then for the knockout?
For Mauricio Pochettino, our manager, it's about balancing the roster. Don't have any unnecessary players go through injuries, not anyone on yellow card accumulation, but also can they keep their rhythm going? Because they have had an incredible start so far, and they want to keep that going into the round of 32.
So who are you looking at right now? Who are you feeling right now?
For the United States, I am excited just to watch Pulisic come back into the game. I am always feeling Argentina. I am a big Leo Messi fan, so I have to say that since I was a kid, I was a Diego Maradona fan for Argentina. I always don't bet against the defending champion as well.
Okay, that's good. That's some good advice. It comes from an expert. Casey, good to have you with us. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now. Don't go anywhere, though. The news continues right now.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.